Alright, this I'm thinking it's going to turn into a crank bearing job. This is one of many 266s I have. This is going to be rebuild the stock, freshen it up, new crank seals, whatever else it needs. This saw is getting fixed to sell. This is not going to get ported, nothing fancy. I have had it running, it has spark, needs a carb kit for sure, but this noise appeared once I had it running. Yeah. Pretty sure we got a crank bearing making noise. So let's tear it down and see what we can find. Of course, this thing's kind of pieced together out of parts, so we get some miscellaneous fasteners right now. This particular saw is an 86. So I don't think that this SE recoil is correct for it. It should have an XP one, but I've got a pile of them, and this is just the one that ended up on this saw. So let's open her up and see what we can find. Is dirty. We'll have to fix that. But let's get it tore down a little bit more than this to start with, just so we can actually get the things to clean out. This curve out of here. I'm not familiar with this chassis. The trick to this mag side carb bolt is to pull out your kill switch. Once that's out, you can get your Allen key in there, no problem. This particular one is an earlier style kill switch. The later ones have a little screw holding them down. This one just kind of pushes in. Of course, I broke the ball end off of this Allen key yesterday, so. Let's see if we can get the muffler off. These studs like to break the end off here, and they're a step stud, so they get stuck in there. Even if you do get the nuts off. And you can see that one's actually both of them are going to unscrew from the cylinder, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. That means we're not going to fight with getting them out of the muffler. When they're stuck in the muffler like that, because I have seen people start to unscrew them, and since it gets stuck in there, they actually take the threads out in the cylinder. And I do believe if I go over here, that's what you end up with. Better now. So this is going to be a full teardown of this, because we do that just with these cases. That bearing, I'm pretty sure it's this side. It don't sound very good. So people argue about how to take the clutch off. Personally, I don't like piston stops. I'm not going to say grab your half-inch air, rattle away, and hope it comes off. I've seen crankshafts split. Watch this. Yeah, I don't even have a spark plug in. This little guy does the job just fine. This saw, like almost all of the other ones around here, 3/8, 810, guarantee you it was running 16-inch bar. That's just the way 266s are up around here. I have a hard time selling them with anything other than a 16 because that's what everyone is used to running on them, and that's what it's got to have. This will pull a 24 no problem, but that's what the locals want. Alright. These Huskies, majority of the fasteners, the larger ones are actually no. This one's old enough that the cylinder bolts are not metric. Most of the rest of the fasteners on it are 4 mil, but cylinder fasteners are 3/16. So just to be annoying. Like I suspected, I don't think this saw really has a long time. Although it hasn't been treated nicely. I'm actually very surprised looking at that piston. I was able to make this thing run. That's junk. Yeah, cylinder, we're gonna have to clean her up, but she'll live. That piston ain't nice at all. But I don't know, that was just bad. I got a good one here somewhere. Yeah, that's okay. I really don't understand how I had compression in this thing. Because it was pulling, I think, 120. Surprising. So this is ZN13. So this is the later 266 cylinder. Everyone's, oh, what are the changes between the 266 SE and XP? Same year, you know, between a late SE and an early XP, they're almost exactly the same. There are two different 266 cylinders, but the change doesn't fall in with the XP change. So, where are you? I have an early one here somewhere. Here we go. So, this one is 50ZN11. This is off of an 83. I think 84 should have this one as well. Now let's see if we can get this in the shot so you can actually see the difference. Biggest thing you'll notice is the intake port. But the exhaust port changed as well. Can you see them? Maybe I'll shine some light on here. Try and use 3 hands while I only have 2. There. see. Not too much change there. That's very interesting. It almost looks like there was a change in the ZN13 cylinder, because this one matches the ZN11, but this guy doesn't. So, can't even tell the difference in the porting by the difference in the number on the cylinder. That's very interesting, because both of these are the same casting number. You can see the very big difference. That is quite surprising, because I had expected the change to be with the different number on the cylinder, but clearly it's not that. Yeah, so the intake and exhaust ports are wider. There's probably a change in port timing as well. It looks like it. I'd have to measure to be sure, but I did not expect that change to be with the same number on the cylinder. That's interesting. Anyhow, let's continue tearing this sucker down. Obviously, we're going to do a top end on this. Cylinder I can save, but I may do a 272 top end on this one just because I like doing that setup. Had pretty good luck with highways pop up. Nicosil coated cylinder. Built a couple of those. One for a good friend of mine. Runs very, very strong for him. Again, here I go with the S-wrench. Might not work so well this time though. Oh no, there we go. Always try and support that rod so that you're not hammering against it, because you can bend them. You wouldn't think that, oh, I'm not putting much pressure on it, but I've seen it done. It is just a little rod. Alrighty, so flywheel next. Very commonly on these, the starter will actually rub into this washer, and I've also seen the nut rounded off from the inside of the hub in your recoil. You wouldn't think that would happen, but it does. Put the nut back on. Just in case we have to hit the end there. Normally I use my little hammer, but it doesn't seem to be out here. I've got a little half pounder, but let's give her one of these and oh, look at that. Off she comes. big end bearing, we're good. No issues with the crank itself, other than being a little dirty. And what's interesting on these is, if you look on the crank here, those bottom numbers, 85, 45. 85 is the year, and if I remember right, the 45 is the week. But for sure, 85 is your year. I'll have to look that up after, but pretty certain it's week and year of manufacture for the crank. So that'll give you a very good idea when the saw was built if you happen to get a saw that doesn't have a tag on it. And usually, as you can see, this is an 86 crankcase. Crank is a little earlier. 45th week 85 would make sense for a saw with an 86 date, so this is probably a very early 86. Don't get me wrong, I would like to have a press, but we'll do. Yeah, no marks, we're good. Yeah, I would really love to have a press to do this job, but I just haven't got there yet with this job, so in time. And out. No damage. Couldn't ask for much better. So, we'll do the same thing on this side. We'll get these suckers out. Actually, it's already proud of that side. Recessed in there. We're going to go this way with this one. We'll go to the inside. And we're golden. Those bearings are junk. Now we're going to go with the good old differential temperature method for the putting this back together. Crank's been in the freezer. We got the heat gun out. We're going to warm up these bearings and see what happens. Now, once you get your crankcase back together, very important, make sure your crank's actually centered. What I find is if it's not centered, you'll know right away. And usually you'll take is a quick wrap on each end of the crank with the hammer. It'll true it up. But if you're not sure, go with the feeler gauge between the edge of the crank and your inside your cases, and you want to make it even. It doesn't take much to move it. Just a quick tap with your hammer on the end of the crank. You know, we're not talking hard enough to damage the crank at all. Just a couple quick wraps. That's why I like my little hammer that's not out in the shop tonight. And we end up with something that turns nice and smooth, just like this. So next up, we'll do our crank seals. So we need our seal retainer and our oil pump. So I will clean those up and we'll throw some new seals in there. New bearings, new seals. Bottom end's ready to go. Too bad we don't have a good piston for it loose. I don't think anything else I have a top end off of right now has a good piston we can seal. So that'll be it for progress on this particular saw. I'll go ahead and put on everything else that I still have here for it, but don't really feel the need to videotape it because you watch me take it apart. Hopefully we can actually finish one next time. Alright, back to our 266. So they're actually going to do something a little different with this one than they usually do. And got a highway pop-up piston for 268. So you can see the bottom of the piston's a little different. It's supposed to be a good jump in power with just that change. Get better flow in there. But also, it is a pop-up piston, so we will get a little more compression out of it. I'm going to use one of my best used cylinders for this one. This one cleaned up really good. And I'm hoping we can do a no-base gasket build on this one. I do have a gasket here. We'll see how it works out. And just because I have it, I'm going to throw caber rings on there. I ordered some of those a while back. I think I ordered 6. Turns out they come two to a package, so I got a dozen. I have all kinds of them, so have them, so we'll use them. The highway rings, some people say they aren't as good. I haven't had problems with them, but I have the caber, so we'll put it in. Alright. Very different clips this time than I'm used to seeing with highway stuff. These are definitely a lot better than the typical ones that fall out. Oh yeah, tension wise they're very strong, so I don't think them falling out is going to be an issue anymore. Now let's see what happens here for Squish. Let's take a couple bolts in and see what we got here. hitting, so that's a start. Let's give her a check and see what we got. Perfect. Okay. I don't know if you can read that. 20 thou, 20.5. That's perfect. We're definitely going to go no gasket on this one. That should work out nicely. Not that the 266 doesn't have lots of compression to begin with, but this will run really nice. And it's not so thin. It's not so tight that I'm worried about anything hitting. Because we are starting to get into bigger saw where things stretch a little bit more. You need a little bit more room. Like my 262, I have really tight. It's all probably too tight. I know I wouldn't sell it the way it is. I think I have it at like, I think 14 and a half. It hasn't caused any problems yet, but that's, you know, yeah, I like to see 16, 17. Saws over 65 cc like this, you know, 20 is about where you want to be. You don't want to be too tight because when things get hot, they expand and you don't need the piston hammer in the cylinder. I use Motoseal because it's the easiest thing for me to get around here. I haven't had any problems with it ever. I'm not going to say that there's something wrong with Durco or anything like that because that stuff is good. It's just, it's a lot easier for me to get Motoseal. It's always on the shelf at the parts store. Everything else I'd, except for maybe Yamabon, I'd have to order in. But my problem is the Yamaha dealer isn't open on Saturdays. And with my work schedule, I just can't get there. Yeah, we're not trying to build a big giant thick gasket with this stuff either. It's just a thin coat. That's all you need. I personally don't use any fancy ring compressor tools. I've always gotten along just fine with just my fingers. I'm sure I'd probably appreciate a good tool if I had one, but I never have, so I just do what I'm used to. Okay, cylinder is on. Okay, muffler. This one. This is one of the very few of these saws I have that actually still has the deflector on it and even has the screen still in the muffler. Someone poked holes in it, but it's still there. That doesn't usually happen. Carburetor, I cannot remember if I have this one apart, so let's just put a kit in it anyway. Because I have a whole whack of those, so. Most of the time all these needs are diaphragms and good cleaning. Very seldom do I actually put a complete kit in. Yeah, definitely. Well, unfortunately the camera stopped recording on me. So, carburetor's torn apart. It's a mess. We drilled and tapped the case for a new style kill switch, because this is the original one. See, it grounds by just pushing in. But this one's not in bad shape, but typically where this is riveted together is very loose and they don't work anymore. So this is the late style. It grounds with a screw. So I've drilled and tapped the hole. We'll put that in when we get there. So, carburetor, kind of dirty, but hopefully it's just going to be diaphragms. And I have a full kit, but usually I don't need to put them in. So I usually just put it together to see how it runs first. 99% of the time I get away with just the diaphragms. This one, other than the fact that it's very rusty, it's not even bad, but it's dirty. So, worst case scenario, you could actually reuse that one if you really were stuck in the bush. Be careful with these kits that fit more than one carb. The gaskets may look the same, but you need to match up your holes. If you don't, you'll find out later that, oh, it doesn't work now. Or it starts dumping fuel back to the right through, or it doesn't fuel. The important thing is you need to set your needles up properly. Now I don't have the Tillotson tool, but I do have the Walbro W gauge. Very, very handy thing to have. Now on this one we want the back end of our metering lever even with their floor, and we're there because the STC part of the Walbro gauge is the same, so we're good. Okay, so we're going to start at one turn out on each one. And that should be pretty close to where our final number actually ends up. So, now we need an intake block. There we go, we scrounged up a carb block and a good intake gasket. I got lots of carb blocks, but apparently all of my gasket sets have 272 or 268 style intake gaskets in them, so we have a good used one. Let's do the job. The thing is, 266, your intake block actually screws onto the cylinder separately, and then the carburetor bolts screw into it. Whereas 272 style, the bolts go right through. So that is, if you're doing a 52 mil top end on these, that's one of the things you have to change out. So, another video, another saw will do that, because I do have one of those kits. So Okay, top ends all together. Everything should be set up pretty good. We'll put the tank back on, put the handle back on, and finish up. And before I started this video, this unit already has a new fuel line filter in it. That was usually one of the first things I do with these saws, just because I keep all that stuff in stock. And with these fuel lines, I always go OEM Husky, because they're not expensive. My dealer always has them in stock. Like I think they're 12 bucks or 16 bucks my cost. So it's not worth it for me with these to deal with the aftermarket lines, because they're both the same price. So it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. Oh, chain catch is missing on this one. We'll have to fix that problem. So I have those two. And of course the fuel line moved and pinched itself. So let's fix that. There we go. Alright, we're mostly together now. We just need carb linkage, which I forgot to do before. Always fun when you use these little guys in the shop, because you never do see them again. Or at least I don't. I'm sure if I took this bench out, there's 4 or 5 of them under there. Carb's hooked up. Tank's mounted. Robbed the chain catch from one of the other chassis on the shelf. Apparently I need to order some because I seem to be missing a bunch. No, it's never going to go on there. It's too dried out. Okay, so put the top handle on this sucker and recoil, and we'll see what happens. Alrighty. It's nice to have just a box of parts on the shelf. The 266s, the things that are hard to come by really are the top covers, because there is no aftermarket on them. And a lot of them seem to have taken a pretty severe beating. This one's gonna rip your hand out. Yeah, this one's gonna rip the handle right out of your hand, that's for sure. Whew. You've got some compression. I better make sure there's still gas in it. And there's not. Apparently the idle is set extremely high. Let's see what kind of squeeze we got out of this sucker. Well, I definitely don't think we're lacking for compression. That's what, just under 220, about 218. So I think she's healthy. All right, fast forward a year. Initially had some problems with the fuel on the low side of the carburetor in this when I made the rest of this video, and I kind of got frustrated and threw it on the shelf and didn't pick it up again for 8-9 months. When I did, I found the low screw had fallen out of the carburetor, but if you watched it earlier in the video, I clearly was turning it, so I don't know what was up with that. But it's got probably about half a dozen or maybe even more tanks through it now. It actually runs very well. Quite strong for basically a completely stock other than piston build. Runs very well. Unfortunately this time I don't think I have any video with a decent chain on it, but I think I've got some I can stick on the end here.